Hello guys, this is Jan at Golden Zen, and a while ago I've announced a Q&A session where I would answer some of your questions. Thank you very much for asking them, and in general just thank you very much for your support on this channel, on social media, and whenever I put something out there, so that is very, very much appreciated. And so we're going to jump right in. I've gathered some questions that you posted on this YouTube channel, on social media, or you sent me via mail. Okay, let's go. What libraries do you use, especially Brass? Oh my god. That's one of the questions I always fear, because meanwhile I have so many libraries. But that's something Brass, actually something I often get, and I have to say, even after all those years, there isn't like the absolute and final solution to Brass. It's still a very hard thing to overcome when you use digital libraries, VSTs and stuff like that. What I usually do is I do kind of a hybrid. I use sample modeling a lot, Brass by sample modeling, and then I usually back it up with something like Cinebrass or Wallander. I also use Vivibrass, it's called. It's also orchestral brass, and I double those up just so you have the rich sound from the sounds that are kind of a little bit clunky and cumbersome on their own, but combined with the very versatile sounds of sample modeling, you usually get a very good result. And it also comes down to the composition and everything, but usually it's a hybrid, sometimes even between 3 and 4 libraries. Have you ever done a song in a very electronic style like Propellerhead? Yes, I think the Nightfire source material is you can find at this YouTube channel, features a lot of that stuff, and also the Tomorrow Never Dies tribute suite has a lot of kind of electronic interferences, if you will, or electronic components. So I would say those are one that just come to mind. Do you ever use a technique where you record a dry track on an effects track together? No, usually, well, it depends. Usually I record dry tracks, but sometimes when I have a hard time imagining what the sound will be in the final mix, I had an instance last time where I wanted to add a detuned tambourine sound with a lot of reverb and also a lot of delay, and I couldn't quite, the way when I just loaded the blank sound without any effects on it, it was just, I couldn't imagine it how it would sound in the whole composition, and so I added a lot of effects and recorded it together. So sometimes I do that, but it's rarely. What software do you use? Now, that's something, last time I talked about this with an audio engineer, and he was laughing at me for still using that, and I still use Cubase 5, which actually is a joke, because I think right now they're up to the 8th or even 9th version of Cubase. But I don't know, I mean, Cubase 5 does the trick for me, and usually I have so many things to do when I compose on a daily basis, and switching the DAW is just kind of, it worries me a little bit, because I'm afraid I lose a lot of time of learning the new features and stuff like that. So I probably will upgrade at some point, but right now Cubase works perfectly for me. Vous comprenez le français? Oui, un peu. What's in your mouth? Oh, okay, that was, okay, I see. That was referring to a video with the breath and bite controller. Which artist influenced you the most? Now, there are 4 main pillars that influenced me the most. That would be John Barry, obviously, Eric Serra, yes, Eric Serra. Then we also have Randy Newman, of course, a man I love very much in his music, and also Huey Piano Smith, who was one of the lesser known people to come out of the kind of New Orleans boogie scene in the 50s. But it's just, that Rockin' Pneumonia stuff, that just gets me going, and the components he's working with, it's so little, but he uses it so effectively, and that's just something absolutely. And I read a biography on this man, and it was just, that's also one of my favorites. Are sample modeling products really that great? Now, that question pops up every now and then, especially by the time when I did the review videos, and as I have to say, still up to this day, when it comes to playability and everything, it's just still top notch, and it's just such a liberating feeling. If, for example, I know that I do a certain track and I need a solo bass flute that really needs to stick out, and that has to have all the layers, that should have vibrato, and that should have you could almost hear the breath of the musician and everything like that. That's just something, it's such a relief that you don't have to worry about these things, because they can do this work for you. So yeah, they're really that great. Will you ever do another James Bond movie rescore? No, probably not. I was really tempted, and every now and then the urge pops up again, but I just wouldn't know which movie. I had like 1.5 years ago, I loosely planned to rescore Dr. No, and make kind of a John Barry approach to the whole movie, and to give it kind of a real soundtrack, but that never actually came to be. And we always run into the same kind of problems. You always gotta all the copyright stuff and that, and then you also have the problems with music that's in the picture, and you gotta tone that down and find a way to make it work. Sometimes also put in new sound effects in there, because you gotta lower the music so much you can't hear the sound effects. And it's kind of, I think that thing is over, and no, so I don't think that will happen. I don't think I will do another one. And another reason is also because I get to do a lot of other cool James Bond related projects, so I can kind of put my Bond energy in those. What are you up to right now? So in the last couple of weeks I did a lot of radio jingles and kind of a lot of commercials and various shorts, short scenes and stuff like that. And there's some more cool things coming up in the near future, just simply because there's a lot of things lined up, but I don't want to give away too much. I mean, I will certainly keep you up to date on YouTube and Facebook, Twitter, and so on. Who sang on that 80s album? Now, that was me, in fact, and I apologize from the bottom of my heart for it. How much Bond music did you do up till now? I think it adds up to about, meanwhile, it's more than 7 hours of Bond music. Do you never run out of ideas now? That was related to James Bond. No, weirdly enough, I don't. I mean, of course, there are things that kind of repeat themselves and that are similar to one another, but no, I never ran out of ideas. It's something. It's a thought that also pops up every now and then, and I'm kind of afraid of, especially when I loosely talk about the project, or when I loosely get involved in a project. I start to think, wow, hopefully I'm going to be able to come up with something. But then once we hit off ground, it never is a problem. It's just something that has been a part of my DNA for such a long time. And no, it never happened. It may happen one day. I certainly don't hope so, but it never happened up until now. More GoldenEye Source stuff coming. Well, I just made 2 new tracks for the upcoming GoldenEye Source update. Now, the thing with GoldenEye Source is I'm not as active as I used to be, and there are multiple reasons. GoldenEye Source is because I usually don't do any covers anymore. I don't cover the original songs anymore. Done that a long time, but meanwhile I'm more interested in coming up with the own tunes, kind of in that Eric Serra vein, and that's something that is very interesting. But of course, it's very time consuming because you've got to do all the arrangement and everything. And GoldenEye Source gets increasingly harder because those are supposed to be fast-paced multiplayer tracks, and so you can't really tell a story or make some sort of a lot of or you can put in a lot of movement in there. You just those are fast-paced multiplayer tracks, so you should start off and stay on top, and you should never have like a down moment. It should always be pumping, and that's just something that's very exhausting to compose, simply because I find it more interesting to tell stories musically, really. So you have kind of a build-up, and then you have kind of a climax, and then it declines, and then it goes up again, and stuff like that. So those were questions that I got up until now. I hope I didn't miss any. If, in case I did, just write in the comment section. I'm sure this will not be the last Q&A video. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you found some of this intel interesting, and I'll see you next time around.